Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, members of the Socorro Bayanihan Services Inc. are speaking out and expressing outrage over the Senate investigation into allegations of abuse within the community. The Philippines weighs its legal options against China over the destruction of coral reefs in the West Philippine Sea. And are the days of smugglers and hoarders numbered after President Bongbong Marcos sought the urgent passage of the Agricultural Economic Sabotage Bill? Justice Secretary Boying Remulla joins us in the program. New tensions in the West Philippine Sea as China installs a floating barrier that prevents Filipino fishermen from entering a part of Bajo de Masinloc or Scarborough Shoal. This comes more than a month since Beijing blocked a resupply mission to the grounded BRP Sierra Madre in Ayungin Shoal. The Philippine Coast Guard says the floating barrier is both illegal and dangerous. The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources also condemns China's latest action. EJ Gomez has the full story.
The Philippine Coast Guard and the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources were on routine patrol near Scarborough Shoal and were set to deliver food and fuel to local fishermen on September 22, when they discovered a floating barrier set up by the Chinese Coast Guard. This was deployed to prevent them from fishing inside the shoal or Bajo de Masinloc.
We captured in camera that the Chinese Coast Guard deployed their three rigid hull inflatable boat together with the service boat of one of the Chinese maritime militia vessel in the area, installing a floating barrier in the southeast part of Bajo de Masinloc.
Commodore Tariela says this was not the first time the China Coast Guard deployed barriers in the country's traditional fishing ground.
Every time that the People's Republic of China would monitor that a large number of Filipino fishing vessels will be proceeding to Bajo de Masinloc, ginagawa nila itong paglalatag ng floating barrier. Na napatunayan natin dito is that the People's Republic of China is deliberately ignoring the decision of the arbitral award and also deliberately not adhering to the international law.
The Coast Guard adds China's floating barrier is not just illegal, but a navigational hazard.
Although it is true na ang mga Filipino fishermen ay hindi nakapasok sa loob ng shoal, it is not true na ang mga Pilipinong mangingisda naman ay hindi nakakapangisda sa immediate surroundings ng Bajo de Masinloc.
The Coast Guard says it will submit an incident report to the National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea. EJ Gomez, CNN Philippines.
Hypocritical. That's how Defense Secretary Teodoro describes China's claim that the BRP Sierra Madre is causing irrevocable harm to the West Philippine Sea. China earlier urged the Philippines to tow away the vessel from Ayungin Shoal if it, quote, truly cares about the environment. The statement came as Beijing denied accusations it is harvesting and destroying corals in Rosul Reef and Escoda Shoal. But Teodoro insists China itself continues to damage the West Philippine Sea through illegal reclamation activities. He adds such propaganda lines only expose China's insincerity and will heighten mistrust toward Beijing. And amid tensions in the Indo-Pacific region, the Philippines, the U.S., and Japan are boosting their trilateral cooperation. This was discussed during a meeting of the three countries' top diplomats on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York. The Foreign Affairs Department says its chief Enrico Manalo, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and Japanese Foreign Minister Kamikawa Yoko had a fruitful discussion and will come up with a work plan. Blinken, meanwhile, says they saw eye to eye on the strengthening of ties in a bid to maintain peace and stability in the region.
We're looking forward to following up on the work that we've already started to look at how we can strengthen trilateral cooperation among us to maintain peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific, to strengthen economic resilience, and to promote the common prosperity of our people.
China denies being involved in the destruction of coral reefs in the West Philippine Sea, describing the accusations as political drama. But one of the people behind Manila's 2016 arbitral ruling sees another strong case against Beijing. Tristan Odalo reports.
Following the discovery of severe damage of coral reefs in Rosal Reef and Escoda Shoal in the West Philippine Sea, former Solicitor General and retired Supreme Court Justice Francis Hardeleza says it's time to file yet another arbitration case against China. Hardeleza led the Philippine legal team in 2013 that later on won the 2016 arbitral award.
It is now right to this time around to ask for damages. So going back to the environmental degradation, we can use the decision and file a new case. For the damage wrought on the coral reef and the occupation of Mischief Reef, Hardeleza says an international tribunal is an option. We go to UNCLOS again, but we ask for a new, we call it an Annex 7. It has to be a new tribunal, Mischief Reef, na inoccupy ng China. Now, hindi na natin mabawi yun kasi we cannot use force. Doon, that's special kasi sinabi ng tribunal na ang Mischief Reef ay nasa 200 nautical miles natin. So, that's a separate count. But a different legal strategy may be needed to address incidents on Ayungin Shoal. The activity as we describe it ngayon in Ayungin Shoal is a military exercise. Yun ang sabi ng tribunal. That's why they did not decide. Ang jurisdiction dyan is the RTC. Now, we can file the case in the RTC. And then we can invoke the treaty, yung call regs, na kasi may mga rules against collision.
If we win, can we expect China to comply with the decision?
I think in both instances, China will take the same position. Hindi sila, wala tayong jurisdiction. I cannot tell you that we will win 100%. There's always a possibility of a loss.
Hardeleza adds legal experts should act swiftly and decisively in studying the legality of the case and gathering evidence at the same time.
There are also calls to bring this issue on the West Philippine Sea to the United Nations General Assembly. Do you think this is a proper forum?
If we bring the case to the UN, matatalo tayo. That's going to be so much propaganda points for China. Sabihin niya, wala kayong suporta. And then there's a legal objection. Pag natalo tayo sa UN and then mag-file tayo ng case, there is an additional ground na mag-ayaw na ng China. Sabihin nila, you brought it already to the court of public opinion.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry rejects allegations of their supposed involvement in the coral reef destruction, calling this part of a political drama.
Our relations should not be defined by the South China Sea issue. The disputes of which must be properly managed through friendly and peaceful consultations.
But the former Soldier says at the end of the day, the decision to file another arbitration case will depend on President Bongbong Marcos, the chief architect of the country's foreign policy, who has expressed the Philippines will be a friend to all and enemy to none. Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
And we'll be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Justice Secretary Boying Remulla. Secretary Boying, good to see you again. Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras.
Good morning, Pinky. Magandang umaga sa lahat.
Okay, sir, let me start with the Socorro Bayanihan Services Inc. or SBSI. After the Surigao del Norte police director, his name is Colonel Laudes, served notices to the leaders of the SBSI to appear doon po sa Senate investigation that will happen this week. Yung mga miyembro po nila somehow protested, complained, aired their anger, their sentiment. Yung iba nga ho umiiyak pa to what they claim is an unfair judgment of their group. The reason I'm asking you this, Secretary, is because they're asking for two things, appealing for two things. One, that the Senate hold their investigation or hearing doon po sa kanilang location. And number two, which is where you come in, that the DOJ go to Sitio Kapihan and hold the preliminary investigation there. Is this something the DOJ is willing to do, sir?
I don't think that's a good request, Pinky. The reason why we are stepping into the picture is that the people there are unable to function properly due to several threats and intimidation, and other things that are happening there. That's why we are stepping in here in Manila to be able to investigate it properly.
You know,
Of course, we can send people to look at the scene. We can also go there to look at the scene, but not investigate it there itself.
and not to hold the preliminary investigation there. That's a big no for you, sir.
Yeah. Big no, big no.
Sir, isa ho,
Will not happen.
isa ho kasi sa sinasabi nila, wala ho silang pondo. They do not have the funds to actually go to Manila. Can that be resolved one way or another, sir, if indeed...
We can resolve that. That should not be a reason for them not to go to Manila.
And how so? Will the DOJ shoulder yung kanilang pagdala?
If we have to, we will. If we have to.
Okay.
We will find a way for them to come here. At least for those who we are investigating.
Opo. Sir, let's talk about this investigation. 4 complaints were previously filed, I believe, against 13 individuals, and this was back in June. Yung pong mga complaints focus on trafficking, kidnapping,
Yes.
serious illegal
Yes.
detention, and child marriage and child abuse. Sir, what's the update on this? And can you give us a brief background on this? Because what I do know is that the complaints were filed in June. What kind of evidence did the NBI, ano po yung mga ebidensyang nakalap ng NBI?
There's a lot of testimonial evidence to the effect, Pinky. They filed the case in the fiscal's office last June. But unfortunately, the fiscal's office could not act on it. The provincial fiscal's office could not act on it. Went to the regional, and it went back to the city. And unfortunately, it has been very difficult for the prosecutors to act on this case. And that's the reason why we are stepping in. Ganun lang kasimple yun, Pinky. The details of the complaints, I cannot really speak about that. But what I can say is that we have to investigate it as the DOJ here in the central office, because it is what circumstances demand of us.
What was the difficulty for the prosecutors? What kind of difficulty did they encounter?
Non-cooperation, and of course the intimidation, I think, is the one. It's the intimidation, Pinky, that we are trying to avoid here. Some people are just too pushy on this matter, and we cannot allow that to happen.
Such as who, sir?
The names cannot be mentioned, and they have not been spelled out to me, but the circumstances have been spelled out to me that there's something that prevents them from acting on this with dispatch.
Is there fear on their side, sir? Meron ho din bang takot na
Yes, fear on the part of a lot of people.
Okay. So, when will the investigation begin? Because from what I also understood, according to spokesperson Miko, is that the respondents have filed their response to the complaints and that they wanted the prosecutors to inhibit. So, ang ibig ho sabihin ho ba nito, Secretary Boying, pag dinala na po ito sa Maynila, mag-i-inhibit na ho ba yung original prosecutors at magbabago po yung set of prosecutors?
Actually, ang pag-inhibit naman yan kasi most because of intimidation. Now we are forming a panel of prosecutors here. We are assigning it to a new panel that will handle the case. Pinky, alam mo, there's a wrong sense of understanding about the nature of the DOJ investigation. Ang DOJ kasi executive kami, Pinky. Hindi naman kami mga judge. Kaya yung mga impartial, unfair, kalokohan yan. Ang amin po rito sa DOJ, kakampi namin dito yung mga biktima. At kung may mga biktima, ito po ay aming pakikinggan. Ito yung aming talagang tutulungan. Kaya all of this hogwash, all of this itong kalokohan na to about inhibition because of being impartial or being unfair is baloney. Wala yan, Pinky. Hindi dapat pinakikinggan yan.
Here's the thing, Sec Boying. I understand exactly what you said and the nature of the complaints and eventually yung pag-file ng kaso ng panel of prosecutors to, for example, an RTC. Ang paano ho dito kapag ipinagpipilit, sabihin po natin, ng mga miyembro ng SBSI na silang nagiging biktima dahil po siguro sabihin na lang natin on politics, one. Number two, sinasabi po nila unfair judgment na po yung ginagawa sa kanila. How do you respond to a situation like that? Kasi nung dinala po nung police, nung PD...
Wala yung Pinky, it doesn't affect me. Kahit sabihin nilang unfair, unjust, wala, Pinky, we know that we're doing the right thing. And everybody will want to cry out this way pag sila ay accused. Pagka sila ay, pag gusto nilang umiwas. Hindi pwede yan, Pinky, sa ating sistema ng batas.
Okay. So,
kahit ano pa sabihin nila, ito po yung katungkulan namin na aming ginagampanan.
Sir, I'm not sure if you answered the question. If I may not have gotten it. Kailan po mag-uumpisa yung preliminary investigation sa Maynila po?
Pagka nakuha na namin yung transmittal ng official transmittal nitong prosecutors from the province. Doon namin iniintay lang namin yan na formally transmit sa amin para makapagbigay kami ng orders forming the panel and asking them to evaluate all of these complaints.
I see. So, transmittal first and then the formation, obviously, of the panel of prosecutors. Is there an urgency? Is there some sort of urgency here, sir? Kailan ho bang matingnan na po ito as soon as possible?
Of course, there is an urgency. Pinky, ang pinag-uusapan natin dito, pang-abuso ng mga bata. You're talking about rape. You're talking about statutory rape and other crimes that are unacceptable to our society. Kaya ang deadline ito kahapon pa. That's why we will act on this with dispatch.
The deadline of what, sir? Ano yung kahapon? Yung pag-transmit nung sa panel of prosecutors?
Hindi, kasi Pinky, this has been going on for a long time. Kaya kung pwede natin maawat lahat ng pangyayari niyan in the best possible, in the fastest possible time, dapat awatin na natin. Kasi may June pa, final na yung kaso. At walang nangyayari so far. Kaya yan, talagang delayed na yan. Kaya ang sinasabi ko dyan, ang deadline yan, kahapon pa. Dapat nung ilang buwan na yan, dapat na didesisyonan. Kaya lang dahil hindi madesisyonan, ngayon pa lang parating sa amin. Kaya delayed na yan.
Okay, understand, sir. Just a quick question. There were other complainants na inilabas ni Senator Risa Ontiveros. But in total, there were supposed to be 8 complainants, sir. From what I understand, 2 have been returned to their parents because nag-file po ng writ of habeas corpus po yung mga magulang. From the update I've read the last time, 2 po na ibalik na po sa kanilang mga magulang. My question is, sir, ito ho bang NBI has spoken to? Have they spoken to these individuals that have lumabas po sa video ni Senator Risa Ontiveros, or yung kaso ho ba ng NBI, yung reklamo ng NBI is completely different from the one that was revealed or exposed by the Senator?
Honestly, Pinky, I cannot distinguish between what the NBI filed and what Senator Ontiveros said in her privilege speech. Ang sa akin lang dyan, basta gagawin namin ang trabaho namin. Whatever complaint that is that we have to act on, we will act on it.
At dahil sinabi niyo pong dapat kahapon pa ito nagawa o nung isang buwan pa ho nagawa, when are you hoping na mag-umpisa po yung preliminary investigation?
May proseso yan. Pasasagutin pa natin yung yung respondents. No? Basta we will follow due process and we will abide by due process and we will act on this with dispatch.
We'll be taking a very short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Justice Secretary Boying Remulla. Sir, just a quick question dito po sa massive coral destruction in Escoda or Sabina Shoal and Rosul Reef, in the West Philippine Sea. Has there been any communication, any meeting between the DOJ or among the DOJ, the Solicitor General, and possibly the Department of Foreign Affairs regarding this issue, sir?
Well, we expect to meet this week, Pinky. Ngayon pa lang kami mag-uusap ng linggo.
Okay. Alam ko po kayo ay abogado, but I'm not sure, sir, if you would be able to answer this. But have you somehow looked into this and found out would you have an opinion on which would be the best, siguro, fora to file a case, if at all, against China? Meron ho yung ITLOS, meron po yung Permanent Court of Arbitration, or the, there's another, the ICJ, sir.
The Permanent Court of Arbitration would be the best place to bring this case. Ang ICJ po, pwede rin, kaya lang it's better that we bring it to the Permanent Court of Arbitration because they already have an institutional memory of all of these things that China is doing to the South China Sea or West Philippine Sea. Alam na nila yung pinagagawa ng China dyan. In fact, there were already warnings in 2015 about what China has been doing. That's why it's probably the best place to bring it. So the facts are already recognized by the body as it is.
Just two more topics, sir, that I need to discuss with you. Si dating Congressman Arnie Teves, sir, Manila RTC issued an e-warrant against the former Congressman. Ano po? Sir, my question is, any update on this? And is the Interpol coming in and hunting him down?
I just talked to the PCTC. We are coordinating that right now. The Philippine Center for Transnational Crime is helping us go through this now because they're the ones in charge of the Interpol in our country. It used to be the DOJ, but there's been a lot of movement through the years through turf grabbing in so many offices in the past that it is now in Malacanang. It's not anymore with DOJ. That's why we'll have to coordinate with them.
Do you know where he is, sir?
He's in, as reported to us, he's still in Timor-Leste.
Timor-Leste. Anti-task force on smuggling. I remember, sir, after your medical leave, pagbalik nyo, this is one of the priorities supposed to be by the coming from the president. So the president also wants stiffer penalties for smugglers and hoarders. There was a report by the NBI regarding onion price. Dito muna tayo sa price manipulation that has been forwarded to your office about a week ago. What's the update on this, Secretary?
It was filed already. It's already now with the panel of prosecutors who will evaluate the complaint made by the NBI. Mm-hmm. The NBI was guided by one of our undersecretaries here and was very active in the hearings in Congress and was able to witness most of the testimonies that were elicited in Congress.
Yung lumalabas din po na ano ho ba? Onion Sibuyas Queen, yun ho ata yung tinawag. I guess that's what you're referring to because that's what came out of the House.
But that will be another case. This is a series of cases. And the lowest hanging fruit, of course, is this price manipulation and hoarding that we filed last week. That was filed last week by the NBI. Under the guidance of one of our undersecretaries,
Sir,
Undersecretary Geronimo C.
I see. But who are the respondents? Sino ho yung inaakusahan dito?
I cannot name them because it's still a complaint filed, but many of them are government officials.
That's where I was going to go to, sir. So, meron pong mga... Yes. Are you talking about current government officials, sir? At ilan?
Current and past. Current and past, yes.
And how many would they be?
I think there are 6 parties that are now that will now be asked to answer the complaints by the panel of prosecutors.
6 current and 6 past government officials.
6 current and past. It's a mix. It's a mix, Pinky.
Opo.
It's a mix.
Pero ano lang po ito sa initial complaint pa lang to ng investigation ng NBI on onion smuggling. This is just, as you said, a first of a series.
Hoarding and profiteering. This hoarding and profiteering.
I see. Sir, so in relation to this, how about rice hoarding manipulation? Meron ho bang update dito?
We are also coordinating with the Bureau of Customs with regards to the smuggling cases that they are filing, because in the past, many of these were dismissed for lack of requirements. But we are not operating that way anymore, Pinky. We have adopted a case build-up system where prosecutors are supposed to elicit from the complainants the evidence that have to be adduced to pursue a case. So we are not acting as judges here, Pinky. We are acting as prosecutors working with law enforcement agencies.
And,
that's why we are now asking the Bureau of Customs to come out with the different documents that are necessary, and hopefully we will be more successful now in pursuing anti-smuggling cases.
How is the cooperation like with the BOC? I recently read, if not this morning, sir, yesterday, that the BOC was saying there's, if I'm not mistaken, sir, allegedly a Chinese mafia on rice smuggling.
Well, anything can be said about it, Pinky. Basta sa amin dito, pagka hindi nag-cooperate ang kahit anong party dito, dadalhin namin sa ombudsman pag ito po ay nasa gobyerno. Yun po yung usapan namin ng presidente dito. Wala hong pwedeng tumanggi na tumulong sa DOJ pagdating po sa paghahabol ng mga taong sangkot sa pag-aangkat ng illegal ng mga agricultural products dito sa ating bansa.
And how?
Kaya we want them to cooperate fully with us in this respect.
So that's a warning, sir. That's a fair warning. If they don't cooperate, i-ombudsman po sila.
Yes, definitely. Yan ang utos sa amin ng presidente. Wala ho tayong pababayaan dito. Kasi dati, Pinky, nung araw, ang nagiging kalakaran, pagka hindi kompleto ang ilang dokumentong binibigay, dinidismiss ng mga prosecutor yan. So, ang nangyayari dyan nung araw, everybody happy. Walang nangyayari sa smuggling cases. Hindi na pwede yan, Pinky. Ngayon, the prosecutor's duty to elicit these documents. So, prosecutors cannot make an excuse that these were not submitted, that's why they're dismissing it. They are not allowed to dismiss these cases motu proprio or on their own. There has to be a substantial basis for dismissal of cases, but not the lack of requirements or documents to be submitted. It is their duty to elicit this.
Justice Secretary Boying Remulla, sir, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras.
Salamat, Pinky, at magandang umaga po sa lahat ng nanonood sa atin.
And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.